Welcome, 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 everyone, to a very, very special edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Today, I think, is a first. It's the first time I've actually hijacked both hosts of a show because I've got the gentlemen of the Distortion Den both with me, and it's the first time all three of us have appeared together on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. So I welcome Deke and I welcome Jax. Hello there, guys. How you doing?
Good morning, sir.
Doing great. How you doing, Tim?
This is going to be a lot of fun, guys. So those of you that don't know, and you should, Distortion Den is a creation of Deke, and Jax has been his co-host, as he is mine. Like I said, he's our Rudy Sarzo for a long time, and they take two classic albums, butt heads, all in good fun, and see how they do. And there may even be one in the future. You might see my ugly mug on, but yeah. So on this episode, I gathered these two esteemed gentlemen together to talk about the recorded output of the New York rocking quintet under the moniker of Twisted Sister. So none of us have a complete Twisted Sister vinyl collection, but it's a pretty small catalog. I think it's a pretty small catalog, really, in any format, because they only did, 5 albums, maybe 6, depending on how you classify things. A lot of material, like a lot of albums worth of material that would eventually surface, but not, really only 5 bona fide albums. So I thought we would talk about what each of us have. I'm curious to see what versions of them we have. So we'll get started with the first album. Unfortunately, I have a really, really rare CD of Under the Blade on Secret Records, but I don't have the vinyl version. What I have is the reissue that Atlantic put out in 1985. You can see that it was reissued with one of their early singles, I'll Never Grow Up Now. And this is a recreation of the original photo for Under the Blade. The original photo for Under the Blade is really, really menacing looking. It's darker. The blade is huge, but they reshot it. And by the way, guys, what is it about albums that came out in 1982 being reissued in 1985 with a different cover?
Yeah.
Is Creatures of the Night. Now, at least everybody on this album played on the album. But anyway,
Yeah.
So the one I've got here is a U.S. Columbia House issue. That's the back cover. I think that's the back cover of my CD. So I think that was the same. And basically, it's just Atlantic Records info here, and in very small print, manufactured by Columbia House under license. Not a record you see all that much. This is what the inner sleeve looks like. So there's all the lyrics and the classic Twisted Sister logo and a personalized label. Kind of cool.
I've always wondered how big the difference is, like audibly, between the Secret and the Atlantic version. I wonder if there's a big difference.
There's one difference that I can think of right off the bat. In Shoot 'Em Down, of course, there's an F-bomb dropped in Shoot 'Em Down.
Okay.
And I can't remember which version is which. One is bleeped and one is not. Not an audible bleep, but
Okay.
Shoot them down with a gun. Like,
Okay.
so yeah, that's there's one difference there. Probably remixed. It's probably a little, the 85 version is probably a little cleaner sounding. It's a pretty rough recording on Under the Blade. It's produced by Pete Way. I think it fits the album. It's heavy. It's probably their heaviest album, right?
Yeah, I would say.
But and it is possible to get an Atlantic CD of Under the Blade, but you have to get a Japanese version. That's never, for some reason, it was never released. I don't think, someone can prove me wrong, it was never released in the States. So moving on, one of might be my favorite Twisted Sister album, I'll be quite honest. Second album, 1983, Can't Stop Rock and Roll. I just like the simplicity of this cover. It's just cool.
Yeah.
Would have really stood out in a record rack. Back cover, it's a Canadian issue, as can be seen by the old maple leaf there. And, I've got a lot of records that came out of CBS records that are gold stamp promotional copies.
There you go. Oh.
To be sold. Now, I'm imagining this had an inner sleeve because my CD has lyrics and credits, but mine doesn't have that. And the record is just in the standard red and green Atlantic label. So now, of course, we're heading for the big one. I think we all have this one. 1984. This was their, the year of Twisted Sister and Stay Hungry. My version is it's just a standard Atlantic retail version.
Oh, I have Canadian.
Yeah, you got a Canadian one. Yeah. See what when you grow up on the border, a lot of my stuff could be from anywhere, right?
Nix.
And let's see.
Lyrics.
Yeah, probably the same.
Same thing, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And the record itself, this looks very much like the Under the Blade.
Yeah. Almost identical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course, that one was everywhere. That's the one everybody had, right? That sold 2 million copies, and chances are, I'm going to guess, because we're not going to take it, and to a lesser extent, I Want to Rock, it continued to be used in so many different formats in movies and TV shows. Yeah. I bet you if there was a recertification process, I bet it's like a triple platinum album by now. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, probably. Easily.
So next up, it's the most elaborate packaging of any of the Twisted Sister records. Is 1985. I think November 1985 this came out. Come out and play. And this one is really cool because it has opens up. There's Dee Snider. And they never did this with any of the reissues of CDs, which is kind of, I think this is like you could do this with a digipack version very, very easily.
Yeah. The CD is just a sewer with hands sticking out. That's all you get.
It's all about money, boys. It's all about money.
Yeah. So there's the back cover. Some interesting graffiti. An awful lot of pink for this. So I don't know if that turned people off. There's an awful lot of pink on here. A lot of light colors. My copy is a US Atlantic copy again. I'm not sure that I remember where I even got this, but there's a little, okay, so this 1985 is the year of the PMRC. Okay. So that's why it's got down here in the corner.
Yeah.
Rated H.
For
and it says humor. This record contains some words and phrases that require a sense of humor. If you don't have one, don't listen. This one has a really solid cardboard sleeve, good quality. Mine was obviously a cutout.
Oh, my Stay Hungry was like that.
Yeah, that's odd for. And boy, it's been a while since I looked at this. I forgot what this looked like. Looks like it's got a silverish look to it.
Oh, to look like the sewer.
Yeah, kind of neat. So next up, it's a rare album. I actually kind of like the album. A lot of people don't. It was supposed to be a Dee Snider solo album. Love is for Suckers, 1987. This is a Canadian version on Atlantic. And it's interesting. I don't know what the story is. This appears to just be a retail version, but I'm guessing the barcode has been just whited out. I don't know why. It's very strange. It's got like a twisted, the Twisted Sister sucker. If this had been a big album, that probably would have been made available as a, And this is just the album just looks like this, your standard red and green Atlantic. And the only other thing I have to talk about, incidentally, I thought for sure Jex had a Twisted Sister single. I thought for sure he had a 45 of I Want to Rock, one of the songs. Like convinced. Nope.
I wish.
It came out in 2006, and I still think it's kind of a fun album. A Twisted Christmas was eventually issued by Rhino in 2017. But a fun album to dig out around the holidays. But and apparently it's limited edition green vinyl. You guys all know I never opened my vinyl, so here it is. Now I know that they had Rough Cuts, which was an EP that came out before Under the Blade. That exists. I don't have that. And the best of that they put out in 92, Big Hits and Nasty Cuts, that exists in Europe and other territories on vinyl. Mm-hmm. It's not cheap to get, but it's definitely one to put on the list. So guys, Twisted Sister, favorite albums, favorite songs, what are your thoughts?
Go, Jack.
I love that debut Under the Blade. which I don't have on any format because it's so rare. Like you never come across it, but I love Under the Blade. And probably my favorite track is the title track, Under the Blade. It's just so heavy and ominous and so different than what they would become known for, like Stay Hungry, the hits, We're Not Gonna Take It, I Want to Rock. It's just, when you put them side to side, it's just so different. But I love that early stuff. Very raw, heavy. Yeah, and hard to find.
Yeah, very hard to find.
Yeah, and for myself, it was the power. I know Jex, our first Distortion Den was Twisted Sister, Stay Hungry going against
Wasp.
And I think it actually ended up in a tie. But
yeah, our only tie to date.
Only tie to date. But the thing with Twisted Sister for me back in 84, I was 16. I was still, like I talked about in the Distortion Den episode, I was looking for that band for makeup. Kiss had moved on. Crew was kind of getting glammy. So when Twisted Sister came around and Much Music was available in my home, you saw the video. So, of course, went and got that one, right? Like and then I think it's currently sitting at like 5 times platinum here in Canada, which is that
sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What version of that do you have there, Deke?
Oh, I just have
Canadian.
The 84 Atlantic Records one.
Is it a Canadian one though?
Yeah, it's a Canadian pressing. It's from Scarborough. Yeah. So I got that. And so, being a youngin at the time, I thought, geez, I got to get more Twisted Sister. So this was the second one I got. And at that same time, I still to this day don't even own Under the Blade. I fell at when I was in high school, had it on cassette tape. So we did the old, dub to dub.
Yeah.
For the old Walkman. So I got away with that for a long time. But I mean, it's one I should actually just pull up on the streams and give it another listen, since Jex loves it so much. I have to, see what he has to say about it and give it a spin. And then, of course, the crazy thing is the next album, that one, Come Out and Play. I bought it for my brother originally back when it came out for Christmas that year on cassette tape. When I saw the opening video for Leader of the Pack, right? Being a judgy little metalhead, I was like, what are these guys doing? So it just turned me, I just went the other way with them. My brother bought the tape, I listened to it. My first thought was they should have put out the title track as the opening single. Here we are, we're Twisted Sister, we're gonna kick some ass and da-da-da-da, instead of going, hey D, I hear she's not wearing your ring or wearing your ring. And I'm like, oh my God, like these guys are trying to, these guys are like acting like what?
Bobcat.
Yeah. So it was like, ugh. So, I was telling Jex this last week or a few weeks ago when we were chatting that up until I went to a record fair right before Christmas, this past Christmas, and finally bought it. Yeah. So I had to get it for the pop-up, man, because it's such a cool concept. And then right before we were talking about doing this, I went on YouTube and there's actually a show from Detroit from this tour that's on there. It's bootleg, but it's pretty cool. You see D at the beginning of the show coming out of an actual manhole cover on stage. So yeah.
What?
Yeah. So they got the whole, that whole ghetto backdrop scene and stuff. And it's kind of a neat watch. I mean, you see where they were at, but I mean, if you read D's book, what's it called? Shut Up and Give Me the Mic. The tour just disintegrated because everybody turned their back on Twisted Sister by that point. Could have been overexposure, could have been the PMRC, could have been just everything, right? Everybody just got
it was fast. It happened fast. I mean, in the States, Stay Hungry sold 2 million copies. Come Out and Play barely went gold. So that's a quarter of the sales. And my understanding is that the CD version, I actually have the Atlantic CD. It's very rare. It was one of the first CDs that was ever deleted or ever discontinued, which is weird for a band that just 1 year previous had sold so well. But yeah, I think that Leader of the Pack might have done. I mean, they might have still been able to get away with it. As a second single.
Yeah, I think
so.
But
if they really wanted to make an impact, they should have come out with yeah, the title song would have been a good one. I mean, it wouldn't have been a radio single, but MTV was king back then. If they'd have done like a conceptual video, they could have done something really cool with it.
Yeah.
And then, your bid for, pop radio play could have been Leader of the Pack.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that hurt them is that they did Be Cruel to Your School, which duet with Alice Cooper. I mean, guys, there's an all-star cast of guests on that song. Billy Joel is playing the piano. Clarence Clemens from Bruce Springsteen's band is on the saxophone. Brian Setzer on guitar. I mean, so they did this video that MTV banned because there were zombies in it. My goodness, some of the execs that banned that, I'd love to bring them into the future and sit them down and make them watch an episode of The Walking Dead and just watch their toes curl. Man, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing in that. So that could have been the anthem that they, just like We're Not Going to Take It and I Want to Rock. And also Alice Cooper hadn't made his comeback yet. And I think that was Alice's first kind of reemergence into the public eye, because he hadn't come up with Constrictor at that point.
Yeah. And the thing too, Tim, is even with Come Out and Play, I mean, they went and got the hot shot producer, Dieter Dirks, right? Who did, the Scorpions stuff through the 80s. So, I mean, the Sonics were there. The Fire Still Burns, another great track. I mean, that's
one of the more popular songs that they would continue to do live from that album.
It was just, I think their marketing team totally dropped the ball on that record on them, and it flatlined really quick. And then my brother, I know, being 10 years younger than me, he was on a trip in the summer of '88 and came home with Love Is for Suckers. So I listened to it. And I looked at the credits, and there's a guy named Reb Beach on it, and there's a guy named Tip Winger on it, and there's a guys from Kicks on it. And I'm thinking, these guys even on this record? And, me and Jex talked about this on our recent episode of Triumph versus April Wine, where I kind of threw it out there that a lot of these guys that fronted these bands had a shit ton of pressure. You look at Miles Goodwin, he wrote all the songs. Tom Keefe and Cinderella, he wrote all the songs. Janie Lane and Warrant wrote all the songs. Dee Snider wrote all the songs. So when you have 4 guys in your band who are relying on you to bring
come up with material,
and then you're the one subjecting them to the record company, and then, like I said, the Jacks, you got all those outside influences. You got managers, you got who knows who, you got wives, girlfriends. Money. Everybody wants their cut of the money, and then when it's not there, who's the guy who gets blamed, right?
Yeah.
So
and
a lot of
and at the same time, friction was developing within the band, because Dee was the face. He was on all the covers.
He was the face, and he was the songwriter. So he's living. His standard of living is a lot different than the rest of the guys in the band. But he wrote the songs. He
earned it. He earned it.
Well, absolutely. I know there was like a lot of jealousy and friction from what I've understood.
Oh yeah, I mean, Mark Mendoza wanted him,
dead.
Yeah, it was pretty bitter. I mean, they mended fences after that, but I still think that songwriting thing is still a burr in their saddles. So yeah, I mean, Come Out and Play, fell off the charts really quickly, and it only certified gold. But Love Is for Suckers just completely tanked. I mean, instant. It's not even one I remember seeing in the delete bins, because I just don't think they pressed that many copies of it, because it just didn't sell. The tour lasted like 2 months. And then years later, you find out it was meant to be a Dee Snider solo album. And it goes, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense, because I like the album, but it's really poppy. Like, it's really poppy. I think it's better produced than Come Out and Play. That's just my opinion. And again, another Winger connect, it's Beau Hill producing.
Right. That's right.
But the other thing is that, that first wave of bands that really brought hard rock to so you've got Motley Crue, Quiet Riot, Rat, Twisted Sister. First of all, they were way heavier than the bands that would follow. All of those bands were heavier. Motley Crue were, basically killing themselves. They sustained, obviously, popularity. Rat hung in there for another couple of years. Quiet Riot had already imploded. And it just wasn't Twisted Sister's time anymore, because, you had Bon Jovi and Def Leppard and Poison, and you had the next Cinderella. You had the next generation of bands coming through. And it's kind of a shame because I understand that the name Twisted Sister had more marketability, but you know, Dee could have put that album out and it might have done just as little business, but they still could have put another Twisted Sister record out, because that was really, until that Christmas record, that was it for a Twisted Sister album. You know, a lot of songs have since come out on the reissues. There's the Still Hungry, which is where they re-recorded Stay Hungry with a bunch of extra songs on it. All the Spitfire CD reissues had a bunch of extra songs on it. So it's a band with a catalog that's top heavy with songs, but not that many actual albums. But yet, to anyone that grew up in the 80s, whether you were into hard rock and metal at all, everybody knows who Twisted Sister, you know, is or was. Even if they think that Dee himself is Twisted Sister, which is what I used to think.
Me too.
You know, like when I was like 10 years old in 84, I thought he was like Alice Cooper. I thought he was Twisted Sister. And to be honest with you, in 1984, I'd never heard of Alice Cooper. For me, it was Twisted Sister.
Yeah, and you know what? And you know, there's a book out on the market by the photographer Mark Weiss called "The Decade That Rocked," and he did all these bands, and he did the cover for
Bon Jovi,
Stay Hungry, and Come Out and Play. Yeah, and he did Bon Jovi. He did them all, but it's pretty interesting because he has pictures of the outtakes from the Stay Hungry sessions of them without the makeup on, standing against the wall with their backs churned with the Twisted Sister back patches on their denim jackets and stuff. So I guess they were floating around those ideas of, you know, we're going to do the Stay Hungry with band shots and da. And then the record company, once they, something similar to that. And then
that created a lot of friction too, because all of a sudden, he, for all intents and purposes to the public, he was Twisted Sister, because Stay Hungry and Come Out and Play, it's just him on the cover.
Yeah,
and exactly. I think he probably wouldn't even have wanted that. He probably said, "This is nothing good's going to come of this."
Well,
unless
he was probably
unless the albums sold enough to, you know, for at least the money to make everybody happy, at least temporarily.
Imagine being a fly on the wall at that meeting when you're telling your fellow bandmates, they're going with me on that cover. Off hack, you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh yeah, and by the way, the next album too. Sorry guys.
These are all, you know, it's fascinating to see, you know, how a record company gets a band that's starting to make the money.
Yeah.
And because they got greedy, they just deep sixed it. I don't think it's the fault of the music. I really don't think, you know, Twisted Sister could have put out the same Come Out and Play record, but with a little bit of different marketing. And I don't know if people took them as serious as they should have, because again, you go back and listen to those first two records, those are just really good traditional metal albums. Mm-hmm. Or at least really, really heavy hard rock, teetering towards metal. And you know, lots of good songs on them. And, you know, both of those I like better than the two that followed myself. I think they're better from start to finish. But obviously Stay Hungry, I mean, those songs, they, you know, if Dee did nothing else to contribute to society but write We're Not Going to Take It, most people would kill to have a song that had that longevity. I mean, that song will outlive all of us.
Yeah. And those videos, like the video that We're Not Going to Take It.
It's so iconic and
I Want to Rock.
Yeah. You know,
I mean, he even dialed one out of the park. Like I know me and Jex talked about it with The Price.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a great track. And
great ballad. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like Dee could write good songs. Yeah. I mean, you know, my wife and I joke about this. He wrote that song. What is it called? The Magic of Christmas for Celine Dion. Dee wrote that song.
Yeah. Wow.
Every year when you're in the mall and you hear that song, Dee Snider's making money from that song. The man can write a catchy song. So, and he's also a really intelligent guy too. I mean, you watch those PMRC hearings and I'm sorry, but if they've gotten Vince Neil to sit there, it wouldn't have furthered the cause of hard rock and metal at all.
No,
but they get Dee Snider there. Yeah, he's he's got the tough New York accent, but he's a very smart guy and he's sober. And you know, he raised up some excellent points until, of course, they asked him what SMF stands for.
He was honest.
Yeah, but
Tim, if they would have got Vince Neil at those PMRC meetings, he probably would have been on some kind of backing tape, anyways.
Oh, poor Vince. Vince is like the whipping boy for all things. Anyway, yeah, we'll leave that alone. But there you go. That's our look at the Twisted Sister vinyl catalog as the three of us have it. I know that there's more. I know that there's singles out there. Jex doesn't have it, but somebody does. You must have pointed one out to me at one of the record expos, because I could swear seeing you with like a single in your hand.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I picked one up at the last expo. That's probably what you're thinking about.
Well, but before that, maybe we've seen the same one and you do. I don't know it. But I thought, well, Jex has a couple of singles. No, I don't. Yeah, not the easiest band to collect vinyl from, because number one, there isn't that much. Number two, you're probably going to find Stay Hungry, and you're going to find a lot of copies that come out and play, because it being the album that followed, Atlantic would have pressed a lot of copies of it. As a matter of fact, I remember seeing by 1990, come out and play on cassette in the delete bins, which I remember thinking was kind of odd, because I thought that was a big album, and it was. They made too many copies of it. So
yeah, well, that happens. That happened with the 4 Kiss solo albums back in '78.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's always the record company thinks, holy moly, we're going to sell a shit ton of these. Boof, and next thing you know it, discount, right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially Peters. Especially Peters. But that's another story. Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's our look, a little bit of Twisted Sister discussion too, because not a lot of vinyls we got to talk about. You can talk about the band itself. So I want to thank Deke and Jex for sitting in. Now, be sure, if you're not following Distortion Den, you got to follow it. They've done all kinds of cool head-to-head episodes. Usually, and it makes sense, you've got similar bands from similar genres, similar time periods, and just seeing who likes what. And every once in a while, someone will surprise you with their opinions on certain albums. But that's another story for another time. Yeah, I'm going to ring that bell quite a few times. But,
it never gets old.
You all know what I mean. And but anyway, there you go. Thanks a lot, guys, for doing this. We'll definitely have to do it again. And yeah, and maybe if years down the road, if our Twisted Sister vinyl collections expand, we can do an expanded version of it. But for now, it's a little look at some Twisted Sister vinyl. And thanks everyone for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.